Good evening and welcome to the August 22nd meeting of the Lake Forest Zoning Board of Appeals. The board is here tonight to work with all of you, property owners, neighbors, and architects, to continue the tradition that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the requests of the owner while balancing the interests of the community as a whole. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Zoning Board of Appeals, the board hears all requests for variations in zoning and special use permits. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures that ensure that all parties have an opportunity to speak. The procedures are detailed on the agendas available at the back of the room. The meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our goal is to move each petition through the review process as quickly as possible, while at the same time balancing the interests of the petitioners, neighboring property owners, and the larger community. So with that, we'll do introductions. Start to my right.
Michael Seaman, 3rd Ward.
Lloyd Culbertson, 4th Ward.
Louis Pickus, 2nd Ward.
Rich Plonsker, 2nd Ward.
Kevin Lewis.
Nancy Novit, 1st Ward.
And from city staff, we have Kathy Cerniak, Director of Community Development, and Michelle Frederick, Planning Technician. First item on the agenda is consideration of approval of the minutes from the July 25th, 2016 meeting. Do we have any questions or comments on the minutes from the board? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a request for a variance for the side yard setback to allow construction of an open porch located at 1229 West Cascade Court South. The owners are Joseph and Courtney Oriti. The representative is David Whitmar, architect. Anybody who's going to testify, can you please raise your right hand? I swear you in. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge? Thank you. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and your fellow board members. My name is Joseph Oriti. I'm the owner with my wife at 1229 West Cascade Court South. I'm before you this evening to require a variance to require a side yard. To summarize my statement of intent that was submitted with the application. My wife and I moved to Lake Forest on August 7th, 2015. Approximately 10 days later, a huge oak tree fell on the front of our home, causing about $60,000 worth of damage to the entire front facade of the home. Luckily, everyone was okay, and it just ended up being cosmetic damages. We inspected the home from the inside, removed the drywall, and insulation inspected stuff, and luckily those were in good order. Unfortunately, as a result of the tree coming down, we discovered that the home had pre-existing foundation damage. Years of water damage combined with average poor job of the poor walls of foundation, among other factors, have caused the foundation to deteriorate. And so my request is attempted me to repair this front wall of the home. I'm proposing to build a front porch, primarily, so I will be constructing a new foundation wall, 8 feet deep, in front of the old wall. That will be tied in with buttress walls every 10 feet into the corner of the home. The wall's 53 feet. It extends further past the second floor structure. The porch would only be from one end of the second story structure to the other. There would be, on top of the two walls, there would be a concrete slab that would be poured, attaching the tops of both walls. Then we would construct a porch. Here's a quick picture of what my house currently looks like. Here is the proposed elevation. I should mention I attended the building review board meeting 2 weeks ago. The project was approved with a few minor items of follow-up that I will have to do with city staff, and will do so prior to filing the permit. One of those, a few items were filing the landscaping plan, which I'm in the process of working on, seeing if there's anything we can do for the spacing of the columns, some other minor details. So I'll be working with them to get that done. The variance provides. Oh, sure. So I don't know if you can see the dotted line here off to the right of the elevation. The zoning, or my current house is 10 feet from the property line. This house was built in 1969. I'm not sure when exactly the ordinance went into effect requiring 12 and a half feet, but it was sometime after 1969. So I would be requesting a variance for this open front porch for approximately 2 feet 3 inches. And if I could show a site plan. That line sliver here, this would be where the new open porch would encroach that required side yard. I believe that's the extent of the project. So I would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Before we continue, I should ask if we have any declaration of conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts from the board.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Identification of issues by staff, please.
Thank you, Chairman Pickus. As the petitioner stated, the house was built in 1969 and currently does encroach 2 feet 3 inches into the existing south side yard setback. The project was heard by the Building Review Board earlier this month, and the board expressed their support for the project, including the siting of the open front porch. A tree did fall on the home about a year ago, as he stated, and the evaluation that was done brought to light the existing foundation deficiencies that exist, set aside from the tree damage. To respond to those deficiencies and create a safer foundation for the home, this modest front porch has been proposed to correct 2 of the areas, as he described, the foundation support that it will provide from the porch to the existing wall of the home, as well as providing a roof line to redirect the water runoff from directly down the front of the home off-site about 8 feet, which is the width of that porch that's proposed. The open nature of the porch does help reduce the massing of the addition and is in keeping with the neighborhood that exists today. In the staff report, you have findings in support of the open front porch that will encroach into the side yard setback 2 feet 3 inches, which is the same extent of the existing home encroachment today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Questions or requests for clarification from the board to the petitioner or staff? Any questions from the board?
I have no questions.
Okay. Public testimony. Anybody in the public want to address this petition? Very good. Final questions from board to petitioner staff or direction to petitioner staff to provide additional information. Okay. We'll skip any additional comments that you need to add or like to add?
No.
Okay, very good. Any additional comments, Michelle or Kathy? Okay. Discussion? Anyone want to jump in on this?
Seems like a reasonable request within the realm of what we do. There's a hardship not created by the owner, and they seem to be coming up with a reasonable solution. I would be inclined to approve this.
I would agree. I think, again, it's covering the extent of the front of the house, same width. It seems like it makes perfect sense here, so. Anybody want to make a motion to approve this petition?
I guess I will.
Go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead. I move to recommend the approval of the variance as submitted based upon the findings of staff and as presented by the petitioner today.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, petition granted.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of a request for variance from front yard setback to allow construction of a replacement single-family residence located at 373 East Westminster. Owners are Douglas and Mary Donovan, Representative Richard Swanson, architect. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest or ex parte contacts?
Yeah.
Do we have someone to provide testimony?
So, I just met the architect at my home an hour ago, because apparently he had some travel disruption, and he's supposed to be here now. So this is completely unplanned for me, so I don't even know what to think, or what to say. So I don't know.
Do you want to just give some background while you're
So-
waiting?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
We have the
Can
packet.
you state your name, please?
I'm Doug Donovan, so I am the.
Okay, can I, you raise your right hand and swear you in? Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, please.
Doug Donovan, the resident homeowner. I've been at that residence for in excess of 14 years. I'm not sure the exact date. And I have been working with city staff for the duration of that, for the most part, looking at different renovation ideas, and it culminated in this proposal. We came in front of the HPC in the last months with the plan that was recommended forward today. And as I understand today, the essence of the proposal is the fact that when it was subdivided long ago, the lot that the house sits on today, it was set at an 80-foot setback. And the proposal is to be more in standing with the neighborhood and the rhythm of the street at a 40-foot setback. I believe it's still farther back than the 40 feet, but more in line with the homes, which is trying to bring it into the same setback as the neighboring properties. So my disadvantage is Rick Swanson was supposed to be here, and I know he was preparing to be here, so I don't have the I don't have the package because he was going to bring it and speak to it today.
Okay, well, I think we can proceed based on the information that we have here. Why don't we move to identification of issues by staff?
Thank you. The petition that's in front of you tonight is for a front yard setback variance for a replacement single-family residence. The petition was also heard by the Historic Preservation Commission in June, and they were supportive of the siting of the house on the property. The property is part of a subdivision that was platted in 1961, and on that plat, as Mr. Donovan indicated, there was a stricter 80-foot front yard setback as part of the recorded plat. The property is in the R1 district, which has a 40-foot front yard setback. The petitioner has worked to strike a balance between the setback requirements on the plat, the setback requirements that are in the R1 district, and the existing neighborhood and where those surrounding homes are sited, in an effort to allow the replacement residents to really blend in with the existing streetscape. In addition, Westminster curves in this area, so the front yard setback follows that curve, and the petitioner has sited the house in a similar manner to the curvature of the road, and at the closest point, the house encroaches 16 feet 6 inches into the 80-foot required front yard setback. In addition, the proposed replacement residence does have an open front porch along the eastern side, and that does wrap around the east side of the residence as well, which will serve to reduce the massing of the addition. In the staff report, you have findings in support of the front yard setback variance request for the replacement structure to encroach into the setback 16 feet 6 inches at the closest point, as noted on the site plan in your packet. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Questions and requests for clarification from board to petitioner or staff? I have a first question. So the subdivision that set the 80-foot setback back in 1961, is that just these two lots here? Or is it beyond that?
It's a 4-lot subdivision, the two in front, one Mr. Donovan's and one to the east, and then there's 2 lots in depth, one behind each of those.
Okay.
So it's just for these front 2 that face Westminster.
And so properties further to the east or to the west do not have an 80-foot setback. They follow the zoning of a Darwin zoning of 40-foot setback.
That's
Correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, am I correct in thinking that the house on Westminster, the gray single-family home to the west of the Historical Society, that's even closer to the street, isn't it? That's not a 40-foot setback.
There is a change in the zoning just in there too. I think GR3 may be the zoning district.
So-
It might be across the street, and it might capture that property as well. I'm not positive.
That house is really close.
It
And
is
the ones
close.
across the street are 40-foot setback?
Yes,
So it's just these two that are 80-foot?
that's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff, and this is maybe a little bit more general, but do you have an exhibit that shows what the setbacks are for houses within the block? In some cases, we see that from petitioners. Is there any policy that they need to provide it, or can that be generated by staff to be able to share with us what the setbacks are on the adjacent properties or across the street in some cases?
In the past, when you've seen it, the petitioners have just provided it. It's not something that is required. In talking to Mr. Swanson, I think he was going to have that for this evening, and intended to have it in his presentation. Unfortunately, that's not here. What might be helpful is if you look at the vicinity map, that's just behind the staff report.
Yeah, I
That
have that.
gives you a little bit of a sense of where those houses sit.
Yeah, so kind of on that topic, is it not, is it possible that that's something that you could be requesting of petitioners to provide on a regular basis in cases like these, where we're looking to try and take into account what's happening on the block? I realize the petitioner was planning on providing it, but is that something that can be provided as a matter of course in the future? Or is that something that perhaps that we need to discuss further at another venue?
That's something that we can certainly ask them for, and it's certainly something that we encourage now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But as far as you know, all the other homes in the vicinity follow the R1 zoning of a 40-foot setback.
Yes, in general. I think many of the homes kind of in that general block, especially right across the street, were also built prior to the R1 or 40-foot front yard setback requirements. But yes, they all generally sit in that 40-foot range. And they're trying to strike a balance here between the 40 and the 80
Sure.
and help it fit somewhere in between there.
I'm just curious, what's the existing square footage of the current home and what's going to be the square footage of the new home? Not that it matters for what we're discussing, I'm just curious. If you could say.
Well, I can give you approximates.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly. So right around 2,200, and then under the bulkage, which is, I don't know if the bulk is on the calculations on the application, so if I remember correctly, it's right around 4,500. So it's all within, it's all within the approved lot size calculation.
Meeting started at 6:30?
Yes, sir.
My apologies, member of the ZBA. I thought it was 7 o'clock. I even talked to Kathy earlier. It's totally my fault, and I beg your forgiveness.
You're going to lose a lot of endorsements
I
on
know
this.
you
but it's
are.
okay.
You doing okay?
He's doing great.
He's winging it.
Well, if you're ready for me, I can go ahead and begin. And again, I apologize for.
We're kind of halfway through.
You don't even want to
Did-
see my PowerPoint presentation?
I know you probably worked very hard on it too. Would you happen to have any information on surrounding lots and the setbacks of the surrounding homes in the area? That was a question that came up from the board.
Yes. Well, I don't have precise, but I can give you a general idea of where.
Rick, can you please use the microphone?
Yeah.
And maybe formally introduce yourself?
I'd like 2 minutes just to catch my breath. For the
Let me,
record,
wait, let me swear you in first, of course.
of course,
Please
yes.
raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
The house to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, the house to the east actually sets back approximately 68 feet because there's a curve there,
Yeah.
okay? So it's really, what we're trying to do is just sort of bring our setback into conformance with the R4 zoning designation, which is a 40-foot setback. So we're actually behind that setback line with what we're proposing. And if you look, you'll note that we're consistent with the other homes. In fact, we're clearly set back further than the home to the west, but candidly, I don't count that as really relevant, given that the other homes in the neighborhood are consistently about the same distance back. So it's about visual integrity as we're proposing a replacement structure.
Sure.
And clearly, here's an opportunity to fix what might be broken. And in this case, we had a setback that, for whatever reason, and we're not sure what it is. Should I stop?
No, keep going.
For whatever reason, it was recorded years ago, back in the 60s. We suspect that it might have something to do with the existing Quinn Lane house next door. But be that as it may, that was then, this is now. So there's an opportunity to sort of revisit it and alter it accordingly. And candidly, we could physically set the house back. It's not that it doesn't fit on the lot if we don't do it. It's just that the purpose of this process is to create something that's consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood. And that's really the intent here tonight. We're not asking for any kind of encroachment of a bay or an addition or anything like that. We're putting in a real replacement structure here, and one we believe is fitting for the neighborhood. Certainly the HPC felt that.
Okay. So we were in the middle of questioning for the petitioner and for staff, so, I think we can just kind of continue on with that if anybody has any other questions.
I had a question for staff, and it's more procedural than anything. If for some reason this board were to deny this petition, does the petitioner have the ability to go and apply to rezone to the standard zoning and remove that requirement from the subdivision?
The petitioner could apply for a re-subdivision, an amendment to the plat of subdivision. And that would require sign-off from all four properties within that original subdivision. A new plat would need to be created, would need to be recorded. a much more complicated process than simply requesting a variance.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the board right now? Okay, public testimony. Don't think we're going to have any of that. Or cross-examination. So we have final questions from board to petitioner or staff. Anything? Okay. Any other comments that you would like to make at this time?
Not unless you have any questions for me. We are prepared to show you any exhibits that you feel are relevant, but if you feel you're
We've got a pretty
comfortable.
good packet here, I think.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Okay, discussion? Thoughts?
I like that it's going to be consistent with the neighboring structures. I think they would have a process and a pathway to have a 40-foot setback that I think would be appropriate under the legal avenues they have. So this is a compromise from that, and I think petitioner is right. It's a chance to bring the neighborhood to a consistent level.
Any other thoughts from anybody else? I agree. I think that, as was stated, I guess the house could comply, but I think then it would look really out of place. So I think this is really the best move, is to bring it in and make it sort of blend better with the existing neighborhood, so it makes a lot of sense to me. And since nobody can really understand or figure out why we have an 80-foot setback to begin with, doesn't make any sense to continue to a wrong, as we said. Okay, with that, would somebody like to make a motion to approve this petition?
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval of the City Council of a variance for the setback requirements to allow the open porch addition to the front of the residence at 373
Wrong.
East
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Westminster, to encroach into the 80-foot yards setback, front yard setback, 16 feet 6 inches at the closest point, consistent with the site plan submitted to the board.
Well said. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Petition granted.
That was the
Congratulations.
easiest presentation I've ever done. Thank
all-
you all, appreciate your patience.
All because of you.
I'm not sure I'd recommend
I don't know.
that course of action.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the zoning board of appeals on matters not on the agenda. Seeing none, additional information from staff? Okay, all right. That said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.